Today we're going to look at simplifying expressions using the distributive property. So if we look up top here, a quick little definition, what does it mean to simplify the expression? Well, that means we're just writing it in the most compact, most efficient way without changing the value of the expression. Okay, and the two ways we're going to look to do that this year is by using the distributive property and also by collecting like terms. So today we're going to focus on the distributive property. And if we zoom in here to number one reads 5 times the quantity of k plus 3. So the distributive property is multiplication. And if we want to apply the distributive property here, we're going to take this value outside our parentheses, the 5, and we're going to distribute it to every single term inside that parentheses. Like so. Now when we distribute it to those parentheses, we're going to multiply the 5 times each of those terms. So the first thing we're going to do here is multiply 5 times k, which just gives us the expression, the term 5k there. And then we're going to multiply 5 times 3. And 5 times 3 gives us a positive 15, so we're going to write plus 15. Okay, positive 15 and plus 15 are the same thing here. So the simplified expression, 5 times the quantity of k plus 3 is equal to 5k plus 15. Sliding over here to example number 2. Example 2 says negative 2 times the quantity of 3r minus 6. Anytime you see the phrase the quantity, that's where those parentheses come in. It means we are multiplying this entire expression in the parentheses times negative 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and distribute that negative 2 through to both terms here. So we are going to multiply negative 2 times 3r. So when we do that, we're just going to multiply the coefficients. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. And we're going to bring our r down there. Then we're going to multiply negative 2 times negative 6. This sign in front of the number goes with the number. So this second multiplication problem is negative 2 times negative 6. And negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. So we are going to add our second term and make it say plus 12. Positive 12 and plus 12 are the same thing here. So negative 2 times the quantity of 3r minus 6 is the same thing as negative 6r plus 12. Number 3 says negative parenthesis 4k minus 1, or the way we would read that is the opposite of 4k minus 1. So we need to distribute this negative sign through. Anytime we see a negative sign out in front of a set of parentheses, we're going to distribute that negative sign through to each term in those parentheses. And when we distribute a negative sign, what we are really doing is we are distributing a negative 1 through to all those terms. So our first step here is going to be multiplying negative 1 times 4k. So negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. And then we can bring down our k. Then we're going to multiply negative 1 times positive 1 here. And negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1. So we're going to put minus 1. Negative 1 and minus 1 are the same things here. So the opposite of 4k plus 1 is the same as negative 4k minus 1. When we distribute that negative sign, all it does is change the sign of each of our terms. So positive signs become negative there. Number 4, we are distributing a 4/5 times the quantity of 10x plus 5. So we're distributing a 4/5 through to all of those terms there. So let's start out by multiplying 4/5 times 10x. So off to the side here, I'm going to show that work. When we multiply 4/5 times 10, remember 10 is the same as 10 over 1. And if we go ahead and do a little simplifying, both of these can get divided by 5. And we multiply our numerators, we're going to get 8 over 1, which is equal to 8. So 4/5 times 10x, or 4/5 of 10x, is going to be 8x. We're bringing that x down. Then we're going to multiply 4/5 times 5. So let's do the same thing. Let's show our work over here. 4/5 times 5 is 5/1. So if we do a little simplifying here, those can both be divided by 5, making them ones. If we multiply those fractions, 4 times 1 in the numerator, 1 times 1 in the denominator is going to give us 4/1, which is equal to 4. So 4/5 times positive 5 is positive 4. So we're going to write plus 4. So the final simplified expression there is 8x plus 4. A couple more examples here. Number 5. The quantity of 6w minus 12 times negative 1/3. So the only thing different about this problem is the number that we're going to distribute is after our set of parentheses here, but we still follow the same steps. So our first step is going to be to distribute this negative 1/3 times 6w. So let's do 1/3 times 6 down here just to show our work. That's 1/3 times 6/1. If we do some reducing, some canceling, we're going to get 2/1, which is equal to 2. And it's a negative 1/3 times a positive 6, so that's going to give us a negative 2. And we can bring our w down. Our next step is to multiply negative 1/3 times negative 12. Okay, this negative sign goes with the number right after it, 12. So negative 1/3 times negative 12. Let's go ahead and multiply 1/3 times 12 down here to start. And we'll worry about the signs right after. So we're multiplying 1/3 times 12. We can divide both of these by 3. We're going to get 4/1, which is equal to 4. And since we're multiplying a negative 1/3 times a negative 12, a negative times a negative makes it a positive 4, so we put plus 4. So that final simplified expression is negative 2w plus 4. Number 6 is the same deal here. Let's scooch over a little bit. We have a quantity of 4 minus 2x times 7. Even though that 7 is after our set of parentheses, they're still being multiplied. So we're going to distribute that 7 to both terms inside the parentheses. So we are going to first multiply 7 times 4, and 7 times 4 is 28. Then we are going to multiply or distribute 7 times negative 2x. That negative sign goes with the 2x. So 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. So this becomes a minus 14. And we bring our x down. Negative 2x times 7 is negative 14x. Example number 7. So for example number 7 and 8, we're going to have to combine distribution and combining like terms. When we have this, we're always going to do our distribution first. So for number 7, we are going to distribute that negative sign through just to the parentheses, just to these values inside the parentheses. So if you remember, distributing a negative sign through is like multiplying or distributing a negative 1 through. So our first step is to multiply negative 1 times 4x. Negative 1 times 4x is going to give us negative 4x. And then we are going to distribute the negative 1, multiply the negative 1 times this negative 5. So negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. So our next term is going to be plus 5. Positive 5 and plus 5 are the same thing. And then we can bring our plus 6 down here at the end of our term. And notice we only distribute through to those terms in parentheses. Last step here, if we want a final simplified expression, we need to make sure all of our like terms are combined. So if you look here at the end, we have a positive 5 and a positive 6. We can add 5 and 6 there, combine those like terms to simplify this expression a little bit more. So if we were to add 5 and 6 here, that gives us a positive 11. And we can bring down our negative 4x. And then our expression is finally simplified completely. We've got rid of all the parentheses there, and we've combined all like terms. And so similar process on number 8. So on number 8, let's start with our distributive property. We're going to multiply 2 times 3a. So 2 times 3a is 6a. And then we're going to multiply 2 times negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So this is becoming a minus 2. And then we can bring our last term down here, negative 8a or minus 8a. Okay, so once we've done all our distributive property there, then we want to double check and see if there are any like terms that we can combine. So if we're looking at this expression, 6a minus 2 minus 8a, 6a and negative 8a are like terms, so we can combine them. So if you remember, we combine them by adding the coefficients. 6 plus negative 8 gives us negative 2. Okay, and we just give them the same last name as they had before. That a stays there. And our only other thing left is our negative 2. Since there's nothing to combine with it, we just bring it right down. So that final simplified expression is negative 2a minus 2. Okay. Last example here. We have a rectangle, and it says write and simplify an expression which represents the area of the following figure. So we want to write an expression that represents the area of that rectangle. And if you look right below the rectangle, there is the formula for finding the area of the rectangle. To find the area of the rectangle, we are going to multiply length times width. So if we were to write that as an expression, our length is 3x minus 5, and we are going to multiply that by our width, which is 2. So there's our starting expression. Our instructions say we want to simplify it, so that means we have to apply our distributive property here. So let's go ahead and first distribute that 2 to the 3x. So 2 times 3x is going to give us 6x. And then we are going to multiply 2 times negative 5. Remember that negative sign sticks with the 5. So 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. So our second term gets written as minus 10. Negative 10 and minus 10 are the same thing.